en una oportunidad. ¿Tiene algunos tips o herramientas que podamos aplicar en nuestro trabajo, en nuestra vida?
That's a wonderful and critical question. And I don't have a simple or complete answer to that question. I think it is a combination of factors that will keep people in the work of making progress on these challenges. I think one, people stay in the work because they're held in a network of relationships that encourage that behavior, that encourage the work. It's very hard to do it alone. One needs ongoing support, particularly on the tough days, to get back into the game. And two, I think it helps to remind people of the values that are at stake to achieve, that make the sacrifice worthwhile. People are willing to suffer, but they need to see the reason why. People will even send their children off to war, but they need to see the meaning of the work. And so I think reminding people every day of the meaning of what you're trying to achieve is critically important in buffering and balancing the frustration and sometimes the hopelessness that they might experience in that process. And finally, I think sometimes you can help people see it as an adventure. See it as an adventure to pursue and beyond the frontier of current knowledge, to create new programs, to run new experiments, to try this, to try that. They have to feel safe, however, to come back and discuss and debrief those experiments for lessons from the failures as well as the successes. And people will often enjoy the adventure of creativity and innovation if it's safe for them to discuss. If it's safe for them to discuss the mistakes they're making and the ways in which the experiment did not achieve its intended results the first time or second time or even 100th time. One famous scientist that we've studied invented a cure for a disease 100 years ago that was one of the major sources of death in Europe. His name was Paul Ehrlich, and he tried to invent a cure for this infection called syphilis. Now it can be cured with penicillin, but back then there was no penicillin. And Paul Ehrlich tried once. He put together some chemicals and gave it to a rabbit who was infected with syphilis to see did the cure work. And the rabbit died. And then he changed the chemicals and he tried again. And he changed the chemicals and he tried again. And he changed the chemicals and he tried again. How many times do you think he stayed in the game of failing before he finally succeeded? 606 times. On the 606th try, he invented the cure. That's what it's going to take from all of you. And he did it, of course, because he loved the learning. He loved the adventure. He loved the discovery. At the same time that he was committed to the value at stake.
Thank you. Next question. La próxima pregunta es, ¿existe algún caso de éxito donde hayan confluido el sector público, el sector social y el sector privado y que sean un ejemplo de transformación?
You will know better these examples but there are many examples. One example that I wrote about in an article on leadership in foundations described in a failing school system in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in the United States, the collaboration of 3 foundations with various nonprofits in challenging. What they did actually was they withdrew their funds from the school system. And that provoked a crisis because they publicly withdrew these funds, and by doing so, they made a very strong public statement that the public school system is failing, and they weren't going to waste their money anymore until the school system made some more significant changes. And that forced the mayor, as well as the school board, as well as the school system itself, to face the reality instead of maintaining a low-functioning equilibrium. But of course, even yesterday in Sopo, I learned that Sopo is the only city yet, the first city in Colombia, to have eliminated the lowest strata of severe poverty, extreme poverty. There is no more any extreme poverty, as a collaboration between government, nonprofit, and Alpina, the business, which has been apparently a wonderful citizen of its community. So I think there's a lot of wonderful examples to draw on as you explore the kinds of collaborations to be achieved here.
Muchas gracias. La última pregunta que tenemos, porque sabemos que usted está de afán, es ¿cuál es el rol de la academia en los procesos de transformación?
I think academics can do research that tries to discover and diagnose the dynamics that involve a complex system, economic system, social system, cultural system, in which certain intractable problems remain difficult to solve. They're intractable because there are various equilibria that hold that problem in place. And academics can spend time with the support, of course, of foundation support and government support, business support, to study these problems, because the more accurately we get the diagnosis, the more we can then develop strategies to bring together the proper parties and distribute around the circle of stakeholders the tasks of responsibility. We need to know something about what the responsibility is. You know, what is the role of these folks and the role of those folks? So I think there's an enormous role for academics in the research for us to understand, get the diagnosis more accurately, so that the activists in the nonprofit sector, in foundations, in business, as well as in government, the activists have a more accurate understanding of the problems that then need to be tackled, and the changes in various hearts and minds that need to be mobilized.
Bueno, profesor Heifetz, muchísimas gracias por habernos acompañado en el día de hoy. A todos ustedes también. Yo creo que pasó lo que él nos dio en un principio, es provocativa toda la... nos deja con muchos cuestionamientos, nos deja con muchos retos para seguir trabajando en las reales transformaciones de este país. A todos ustedes, muchas gracias por acompañarnos también este año. Creemos y seguimos confiando que este es un espacio que la Fundación